Welcome to MacVoicesTV. This is the talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And I'm happy to welcome, I think for the first time to MacVoicesTV, but certainly not to MacVoices, my buddy Jim Lee, the head man at Tropical Software, the maker of Top 10 Notes. Jim, it's good to have you on MacVoicesTV. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Chuck. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We haven't done video, I don't believe, the two of us together, and we're going to try something that's a little new for us and see if we can make it work. But that's my part. I'm really excited to hear everything that has happened about Top 10 Notes. You were on MacVoices, it seems like just yesterday, but I know it's been probably a month or two now, talking about some of the new things, asking for beta testers and people to help you get it up and running. Now it's running, it's out there, it's live. What's new about Top 10 Notes?
Well, actually, I think it was probably at least 3 months because we were 3 months or more in beta testing. So it has been a little while. And what are the latest things in Top 10 Notes? Well, we have the very latest thing is sync with Apple Touch devices. And that turned out to be a whole lot more work than we thought it would be. But, we knew the Touch application itself was a whole new application from scratch, of course. But the sync part actually turns out to be almost as much work as another application. So this release, even though it's only from 1.5 to 1.6 on the Mac side, was sort of the equivalent of 3 releases, normal releases. And it's been a lot of work. It's been fun. We've evolved what we were doing several times and made it better, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, well, I have to tell you, people sit out here from a user perspective and say, well, I just want stuff to sync. Come on, guys, how tough can it be? I talked to developers, and they've all said the same thing that you did, that it takes quite a bit of effort. It's not quite as easy as they'd like it to be. A lot of people have implemented different strategies, so I'm anxious to see how yours works. But Jim, before we do that, I want to ask you to just talk about Top 10 Notes and where it fits into the note-taking space. And we've covered some of this before, but Notes seems to be a really unusual category, almost its own breed of application. And we're seeing so many people get into this space. And the funny thing is, I find myself using 2 or 3 note programs for different things because of the way they function. Where does Top 10 Notes fit into this?
Gosh, that's a hard question. I agree with you. In fact, most of our customers, or many of our customers, tell us they will use Top 10 Notes and Circus Ponies or Top 10 Notes and Notational Velocity or one of the other programs that are out there. I believe the last time I counted, there are about 100 Mac note-taking programs, which is an awful lot for a little category like Notes. And then there are many, many flavors. There are programs that do just simple notes and have just one very simple display, and then there are people that have things that are much fancier. There's lined paper, there's unlined paper, there's a variety of things one can do. You can have encryption on your notes to protect sensitive information or not. So everybody has sort of their own subset, if you will, of the complete setup, all possible note-related features. And where we fit in, I think we've got a nice balanced product. We have a lot of the features that other people have. We have some unique features that nobody else has. And then there are probably a few features that other people have that we don't have. So we have tried to build our program really since day one, after we got the first release out. Largely based on customer feedback. And every time I would go to a Mac user group or communicate with a customer in some way, I would make note of what they wanted in the note program, and we would try to add that. And we continue to do that. I was just in correspondence with one of our customers in New Zealand today, going through his list of things he would like to see in Top 10 Notes. And they're amazing. Somebody who's been using the program for 3 years suddenly has several brilliant new ideas that are things that we either hadn't considered or didn't think anybody would be real interested in. So, and this is sort of an evolving, continuous process of evaluating what we're doing, listening to our customers, looking at how hard it is to do what they want, looking at whether they're the only one in the world that want this particular thing or whether it's something that's going to make sense for a whole lot of people. And we take all this into consideration. We actually go through these lists almost every release, unless it's just a little bug fix release. For any major like point release, we go back through, turn through this whole list, and try to figure out which is the top priority of things based on what we think we want to put in and what other people have suggested. So that's how we develop top 10 notes from a sort of very high point. I don't know how other developers do it, if it's all ideas hatched right out of their brains, or if they're strictly going from customer feedback, or both. I would like to think most developers do something similar, that they process information from the outside as well as work with their own ideas.
Well, how about if you show us some of the highlights of Top 10 Notes overall and what's new in the newest version of Top 10 Notes?
Sure. I'd be glad to do that. Okay. So, very basics in Top 10 Notes. Top 10 Notes can display just one note. As you can see here, very much like the old original Apple Notepad. Top 10 Notes can display 2 notes at once, or 3 notes at once, or 4 notes at once, as many as you have horizontal screen space for, you can display. And then you can dial these up with the little page turning arrow at the bottom. Or you can enter new notes with our samples and templates. Top 10 Notes ships with 10 templates, and these are really just sample notes. Things you might want to keep track of in a notepad, ideas to get yourself better organized. And then Top 10 Notes also ships with 100 sets of samples. So here's, for instance, 10 different kinds of to-do lists, which I call To-Do Mania. And we'll look at those in just a second. Let me just throw a couple of more notes up here from the templates. And so I don't know if you're going to be able to pull this down in video, Chuck, with all these different notes and different views, but this is sort of the way it would look if you were to have up 6 notes on a wide screen at once on different subjects. Now you can close down a view if you want to make room, and then you can open the note organizer. So let me just close a couple of these down. And we'll open the note organizer. Now, the note organizer, one of the Apple employees, when I was giving demos a couple of years ago at the Apple stores, referred to this as iTunes for Notes, which I thought was a great way to describe it. And it's a fancy table of contents, index. It has a lot of features, and these have evolved quite a bit over the years. It has 3 tabs, so you can look at things, a view with the folders and the notes sorted alphabetically, or you can look at just the notes sorted alphabetically, or you can look at notes in a particular category. And all of these you can sort forward and reverse. So you can reverse sort by note number, by date created, date modified, by category, and by note name. So it's just a myriad of ways to find your notes within the organizer. Not such a big deal when you've only got 2 or 3 notes, but you can imagine if you start getting hundreds in here, it can become kind of a nightmare to find things. Well, that's the basics of the note layout scheme itself, and this is something very unique. We don't know of anybody else, Mac or PC, that has the ability to display multiple notes in one window like this. The other really popular feature we have is Quick Notes. And Quick Notes is a little global floating window that can be put anywhere, and has a drop-down list of your top 10 notes. In this case, we haven't designated any, so let me just go through and quickly designate some. Now, you can do that by checking them off here in the note organizer, or you can pick the Quick Note category, or any category, from beneath the note views. A lot of things like that you can get to in more than one place in Top 10 Notes. So now you'll see that those notes that I've added are now on my Quick Notes list. And therefore, easy access. So let's just say you had this main window buried behind 50 other windows, or you had it minimized to the dock, and you suddenly needed your bank account list. You select that from your Quick Notes menu, and the app opens up or comes up from behind all the other apps and jumps right to that note. So instant access from the desktop to your key information. Macworld described that as our killer feature, and I think they're right on, because that's usually the feature that when people see it in Mac user group presentations I've done, that's when they know they want it. We have a whole bunch of other features. You can encrypt all of the notes. You can put sensitive information in them, or you can encrypt individual notes. We've recently, this last winter, added this modern upper toolbar, a title bar toolbar, which is found in most OS X applications. And this can be customized just like you would in any other Mac application by dragging a default set or by dragging individual icons, depending on what you want to see. So you could, for instance, here I'm going to drag read only up here, and I'm going to remove the info button. So this can be highly customized, just the way that you would do with any other application. In addition to encrypted notes, you also have read only, which is something you just set for read when you have some information that's not really secret, but you don't want to mess up. You can set it to read only, and you just click it to unset it, make it writable. And then the thing that we've added the most recently is iPhone synchronization. It actually started off as iPhone synchronization, of course, and while we were working on it, the iPad came out. It actually syncs to all Apple Touch devices, although the Touch application is designed for iTouch and iPhone.
Now let's be clear about that, Jim. When you say all the Touch devices, you're including the iPad?
Yes, it will run fine, just like any other iPhone app that was designed for the iPhone. It runs fine on the iPad. It's not set up to draw on the iPad. It's not an HD app, so the characters are a little bit coarse. Some people like that. If you're a little older and you have poor eyes, like I do, it's a lot easier to read those big letters on the larger screen. But yeah, it works fine, and we have an iPad app underway that will be more of an HD app that'll be coming up later in the year. And there is a little bit of setup involved for the iPhone sync. We've added a second. Actually, it's a third permanent category now called sync. So if you wanted to sync, say, your credit card notes, which I wouldn't recommend syncing anything that's proprietary. Well, let's just say you wanted to sync your to-do lists here. You just simply go down here and select them as with the sync category. And so it doesn't sync everything. It just you have control over what you want to sync. You can sync all of your notes. You can sync one of your notes or none of your notes. But these three have been selected to sync. And then we go into the iPhone sync, and you have to enter the top 10 notes serial number in your Apple Touch device, which I see here I have not done. And that takes... Oh, I have done that. Okay, there it is. The reasoning behind this, and it sounds a little arcane, but it's a great idea. Let's say you walk into the room and you have some sensitive information on your phone. You don't want somebody who happens to be running top 10 notes to be able to glom onto your phone and suck down your information. So you want something to make it clear that you own top 10 notes Mac and you own a version of Top 10 Notes Touch, and that you want to set up a secure connection between the two of them. So what we do is we require you to take your Top 10 Notes Mac serial number and enter it over on the Top 10 Notes Touch device. So here, for instance, if this number doesn't match, you're not going to be able to sync. And it also allows you to differentiate. So maybe you want to sync a slightly different set of notes to your iPod Touch than you sync to your iPad. You can do that. I think we support up to 15 different Apple Touch devices. So you could have a home iPad and a work iPad and a home iPhone and a work iPhone and 3 kids' iPod Touches. And you could sync them all and sync different information to each of them. So once you select this, you just press sync and off it goes. In this case, it's copied 5 notes from the Mac to Top 10 Notes. In this case, I'm running it on my iPad. And I guess we can turn on the camera later, and I'll show you those notes on the iPad.
Jim, let's be specific on that. Is this a sync over what? Over Wi-Fi? Over 3G?
Yes, this is a Wi-Fi. In fact, we've actually been advertising it as it's a cloud-free sync, just to emphasize that. There are a number of different approaches to this. There are some people that don't want to put their information out there on the cloud. There is sort of a growing school of mistrust of the cloud. It's not everybody. A lot of people are quite comfortable with it. But there are people that just don't want their information on the cloud, and this way you're restricting it to just what's on your little local network at home or at the office.
Let me ask you a question, because I've run into some problems with other apps that tried to do this. I am traveling on business, and I've been out all day doing things with my iPad. I come back, and I want to sync up my notes. I've signed up for the hotel internet. Obviously, I'm not at my home network or my office network. Maybe I've signed up for the wireless. Maybe I've signed up for the wired, depending on what's available and what kind of hotel I'm in. Can I achieve the sync in this way with being on those guest networks, or am I pretty much restricted to what's going on at my home and office?
Well, that seems to be a function of how these networks are set up. Some of them seem to be banning that type of transaction. I've run into the same thing that you're talking about and been unable to get. I can get my computer on the Wi-Fi network, but I can't get my touch device on the Wi-Fi network. And I don't know if they're detecting that it's an iPhone or an iPod Touch and not allowing it, or if it's something in the setup. But yes, it certainly is theoretically possible. We haven't done a lot of testing in that arena, and that's something that we probably need to do.
Okay, as a workaround, and since you are posturing this as a cloudless sync, can I just connect my iPad and my Mac directly and have it sync in that fashion, a normal sync?
Well, when you say a normal sync, you mean USB and the device in a cradle or on the cable. And the answer is no. Apple does not allow us to use the cable. Only iTunes can use the cable connection for syncing.
Okay.
As we would have loved that, and then we would have had this done years ago. I shouldn't say years ago, but a long time ago, if that had been an API that Apple had made available to us. Apple has not opened up that, nor have they opened up the note synchronization API that's used to sync between Apple Notes and email. That's not something that's been opened up, although we have requested it, and some other developers requested that or something similar for, say, .Mac. It's currently not available for third-party products from Apple.
Okay, so now I'm able to have all my information in Top 10 Notes and sync them across to my iDevices with no other problems. That seems like a really big deal, Jim, given some of the other clunky, at best, syncing solutions we've seen out there for things like this.
Well, I'm not. I haven't really looked at great detail at how the other note programs do this, so I can't comment too much. I know Evernote, for instance, requires an account to be set up on the cloud, and I think almost all the cloud folks require, yet another web account with yet another username and password to remember or have remembered for you. So this is something that doesn't require that. Once you're set up, you don't have to give a password to do your sync anymore. You've essentially done that by providing the serial number to the touch device. So it is a little different than the cloud methods. And like I said, I haven't really looked at how the other note companies have done their Wi-Fi connections. I don't think anybody else is using a similar system. But we've been so busy trying to get ours to work and work well that we haven't really had time to go out and study all the competition on this particular issue.
So on the iPhone side, I'm able to run this in a touch app that I'm getting, your touch app that I'm getting from the iTunes store. On the iPad, I'm running that same app. I'm just having to 2x it up. But on the iPhone, it's there and it looks perfect.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It looks pretty good on the iPad, actually. We think it does. I mean, obviously, if somebody who's written a beautiful HD app will argue that point. This is just a 99-cent app. It's our first touch device app, and it's meant to get your notes fairly seamlessly back and forth between your Mac and the iPad or the iPhone or iPod Touch. We took the approach of putting the Mac application in charge, and that is one difference. We don't have a separate kernel extension running or anything like that. The sync code is all contained within Top 10 Notes. You don't have an extra memory footprint or anything. It does all the communication with the devices, and it handles everything. And it does allow you to sync to multiple touch devices.
Jim, from a scheduling standpoint, do you allow or advocate any kind of automatic or scheduled sync so that if my two devices or any of my devices and my Mac are in proximity, that they can sync without me having to touch them? Or is this something that I have to initiate myself? I can see some advantages to both aspects.
No, we don't allow the apps to sync around behind closed doors and do anything. That was a little joke. No, that is something we plan to do in the future. In fact, we'll probably offer similar options to what you see in Mobile Me, where you can have it sync automatically, manually, or on some hourly schedule. And that's I'm not like Apple, and I won't say that I don't talk about future products, but we have that in the plans. Right now, it's a manual sync in the sense that you push a button that says sync when you want to sync. And you have to remember to.
That's something that I'm sure you're going to draw some fire for. You're going to get some criticism because some people are going to say, I really want that. I'm not going to buy it until you do implement that. I'm not sure this, though, is a non-starter, at least for me. I've had plenty of instances where I've had applications that were trying to do this for me. And if they don't work, I end up with duplicate entries, multiple duplicate entries sometimes, or missing entries, which is arguably worse. So I don't know that the whole cloud thing is completely ready for prime time yet, and it doesn't disappoint me that much that you don't have it implemented here.
No, I would agree with you. I think that, and I've run the same thing, by the way, with Mobile Me syncing of calendars, duplicating calendars, and duplicating my entire contact database on the phone. So I had two of everybody. This has been a problem with Mobile Me since day one. If you turn on cloud syncing and also do the wired syncing with iTunes, if you do both, you will duplicate things. I don't know why this is not publicized. I haven't ever seen it publicized, but it's been well known for a long time. We don't currently only have one way of syncing, so we don't have that particular problem. But it is something that's you mentioned how complicated this can be. That the other developers have told you similar things. There's a lot of things to check. You have a note on the Mac and a note on the iPhone. That's fine. You copy one each direction. Now you modify the note on one side. Okay, well, obviously that one is the one that gets copied back now. What do you do when you modify them both? Or what do you do when you deleted one but not the other? Who's in charge? And these are all little decisions that have to be made, and if they're made wrong, the customer loses information. And if they're made in other ways, you can end up with duplicate information. And so it's much more complex than it looks just glancing at it.
Jim, just like I would expect, you've been busy. You seem never not to be busy because you always are working on new editions of Top 10 Notes and new features. What are you doing in the way of pricing right now for the package? What is there in the way of upgrades? And I think you mentioned that the touch version, the iPod and iPhone version, is 99 cents. Is that right?
Yes, the current version is 99 cents. We probably are going to we're looking at whether we want to do an ad-supported free version. That's something we're considering. And we're also looking at more of a pro version that would have a lot of the features that Top 10 Notes has, as well as an HD version for the iPad that would have a lot more features and a different scale. And it'll be a whole different application because of the way Apple has set that up. So those are all things that are in the works. You mentioned upgrades. Anybody who has a copy of Top 10 Notes up through 142, it's $19.95 to upgrade to the latest. If you happen to have version 1.5, then 1.6 is free. This was something we actually didn't anticipate doing. We were going to not have a paid upgrade until 2.0, but we kept adding stuff to it and finally decided we didn't want to hold it back any longer, so we did this interim upgrade. So that's the upgrade offer that we have at the moment. We also have various offers for Mac user groups. In fact, one is I'm just in the process of putting up. Probably find a link to it for anybody who's running a Mac user group. It's an opportunity to get a software review copy and a club copy.
Great. Well, I'll make sure I have links in the show notes to that. I got to tell you, this time of year, Jim, a lot of people talk about back to school things. I would think this is something that any student should look at. I know that there are a lot of cool, sexy cloud apps out there, and there's a lot to be said for those. But like you said, every note application has their own characteristics, their own benefits. And I see a lot of things here that I really like about Top 10 Notes. I especially, as you know, I like the ability to have multiple notes on screen, organized, not just plastered on my screen somewhere, but to be able to and to be able to change that view as I need to. It's almost like having a super spreadsheet cell of some kind that I can do things with. So, folks, go out and check out Top 10 Notes. Jim will give you the website in a second, and of course, I'll have it in the show notes. But I think it's worthy of your note-taking dollars to take a look at this program. And Jim, what is the website?
www.tropic4.com. I don't know how this will come out on cam, but I thought I would show you the results of the sync. This happens to have been synced to the iPad. It may show up better on a screenshot, but we actually successfully synced 5 notes to the iPad when we were doing a demo earlier. So
good. So
a little hard to show that since you can't run a program to get that screenshot while we're talking here.
Yeah. But we'll if we can, we'll stick a screenshot in so that folks can do it. But I think we can take your word for it that it's synced. Jim, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us and showing us a new version of Top 10 Notes.
Thank you, Chuck, and everybody be sure to look for our back-to-school sale coming up shortly.
Great. I'll have links in the show notes to Top 10 Notes, to Jim's website, to follow Jim on Twitter, to follow me on Twitter, and to everything else the Mac Voices group's doing. Until the next time, I'm Chuck Joyner. Thanks for watching. MacVoicesTV is part of the MacVoices group and a member of Mac Level 10.